Hi, welcome to episode number 234 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarns called The Corner of Knit and Tea, and we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. If you haven't come and joined us, please do. Hi, how are you? I hope that you are having a lovely Monday. Excuse me, it is Monday, June 24th, and it is mid-afternoon, and I am sort of back and recovering. As you can see, my voice is still just a little bit froggy, and I still have a little bit of congestion going on, but I feel much, much better, and I'm pretty sure I am not sick anymore. So let's do a little chit chat before we start. Probably the most momentous thing that has happened, and it has happened in the last 24 hours, is many of you will have seen Ravelry's new policy banning discussions of Trump and his administration's policies on the website. I know that this is a very touchy subject to a lot of people, and I want to reiterate what I have said all along here. And unfortunately, I did not say it before January, but I said it in January in response to the discussion of diversity and inclusion in the knitting community. Everyone is welcome here. But that said, I do not tolerate anything white supremacy. I do not tolerate anything that makes others feel unwelcome here. I want my community to be an open and safe space for everybody to participate, and I value participation from everybody from all walks of life. I suspect that I will lose a few of you, and that is okay. I wish you well. I have never made a secret of well, I could say my politics, but at this point it comes down to human rights, and I don't actually believe human rights are political. But what I want to say is I respect that you hold differing opinions from me, and if this is not the right place for you, then I am sorry to see you go, but I think it is important that this space is open for everyone to participate, and if anyone feels like they can't participate, I feel like I have done something wrong. So if you find that threatening, then again, I'm sorry and I wish you well, and let's move on from there. So I hate to start on kind of not a controversial topic, but I hate to start on something big and weighty, but it is important, and it did just happen, and I want my feelings on the subject known. I am proud of Ravelry for taking a stance and for trying to keep their space safe for BIPOC, for LGBTQIA individuals, and for anyone who has been made to feel less than. So that's where I'm going to leave it, but I did want to speak to that. The rest of my podcast had a definitely a slightly different feel to it, but I feel like when these things happen, if I don't say something about them, I don't make it clear where I stand, and I also feel like I am sort of stepping over the chalk outline of the body in the room, and I feel like I need to come out and affirm where I am. So, that said, I have lots to talk to you about. I just got back from TNNA, that is the National Needlework Association, and or I think it's the National Needle Arts Association, and it was my first time attending the show, which was kind of exciting. I got to meet lots of people, including several of my clients face-to-face, which was really nice because I've been working with them for a year now, and so it was nice to actually meet people in person and get to interpret tone and body language. We also got to meet several new people, potential clients, and people that we can help, so it was busy and full of networking for me. The interesting thing, so TNNA is an industry show. For the most part, it is where exhibitors come, so local yarn stores and other places that stock yarn can come to do business and place orders. So it is not a consumer show. although there is a little bit of a consumer element to it that I didn't really realize. So a lot of the booths, some of the booths just bring kind of one example of each of their lines. So, you know, you'll see a wall full of skeins in the colorways that they do and the bases that they do. Some bring stock. And that is to encourage shops to place orders, and then also potentially to take some samples home to show people what they have bought and what will be coming. Also so that they can knit up some samples so that when their orders arrive in the fall, they've already got samples ready to go and can share them with customers and show them what they can make with these beautiful yarns. There are also all kinds of accessories. There were bags, there were shawl pins, there were, I'm trying to think, there is also other needlework. It is not just knitting and crochet, although that is quite a bit of it. Krennic was there. They do a lot of the threads for embroidery and cross stitch. I'm trying to think, needle producers were there. Knitter's Pride was there. So there's a wide variety of vendors, but it's basically people who supply products to local yarn stores. So that was kind of fun. And then the way, so everybody brings, or a lot of people bring products to share with the local yarn stores. And so at the end of the weekend, they do a little bit of cash and carry, which I misinterpreted to be cash only, which I think it was in the early days. And so I did not bring any cash so that I would not let myself shop. But lo and behold, it turns out that they also accept credit cards. So that was a little dangerous. I did bring a few purchases with me. And actually, I'm just thinking of one that I forgot. So I am going to pause and I am going to go grab that. And then I will get into this week's podcast. So hold on just a moment and I'll be right back with you. Okay, let's get back to things. As you can see, I'm not completely finished with my trip to Ireland. This is a t-shirt that I got in Ireland, and I absolutely love it. I saw it for the first time, and it made me laugh, and I needed it. And my tea is actually from Scotland today. It is from Hetty's Tea Shop, and it is called Little Miss Spice Girl Posh Dark and Ginger All in One Cup. The ingredients are Assam black tea, ginger, cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves. And this is Hattie's Tea Room. You can kind of sort of see the logo in there. I should pull that card out. Here, I'll pull it out because I believe they just dropped the card in there. It was this little tea room that we stopped in. It is a UK tea shop. And it was this little tea room that we stopped in a small town of which I cannot remember the name now. And actually they had homemade ice cream too, which was delicious. That's what we had. But then they had a wall full of tea and I was like, well, I need to do that. So it is from Hetty's Tea Shop, which is, I will put the link in it. It's called hettiesteas.co.uk. And this is Little Miss Spice Girl, because you know I love spices. And this is the Loopy U Spring Fling mug. And I can't remember, I'm not even sure this is the year I attended. I might have gotten the last year's mug when I attended. So yeah. Ooh, and that is delicious. I added just a bit of sweetener. It's just a black tea with, you know, mulling spices and a little chai, a little holiday. And that's right where my sweet spot is. So let's talk about knitting. We will talk about what I got at TNNA, and then we will announce the winners. I actually already announced them on Ravelry, but we'll announce the winners for the Spring Garment KAL. So, knitting this week is going to be kind of super boring because I have plenty of knitting that I did, but it's only on one project. So, I am currently working on a review for Kramer Yarns, and that is the Totemy Tweed, which is a acrylic cotton blend. Let me pull I can never remember. It's 45% cotton, 55% acrylic, tweed in a DK weight. This is the colorway Loganberry, which is pink, and then it's got all kinds of orange and yellow and green and white flecks in it. It's really, really pretty. Last week I had knit up the first front half, and I think I was working on the second front half. So I now have two front halves. You can see them. They are lovely. They are two front halves. This is the pattern. Sorry, let me step back. The pattern is Opportune, which is a pool cover-up. It was featured on the cover of Knitty, the summer edition. It is Opportune by Emily Ringelman. And it is basically a pool cover up with garter lace, with garter edging, and then kind of this simple lace, trellis lace, which is just beautiful. It knits up really quickly, both because it's an open gauge and because I am knitting these on a US size, let me pull it, 7. So, you know, knitting it up at a nice gauge. I cannot remember what the pattern calls for, but I am pretty close to on gauge for that. And so I did the 2 fronts, and then what I did was I had lots of plane time to TNNA. I had to go to TNNA, was held in Cleveland this year. And I did not spring for the direct flight, so I had layovers in Chicago both directions. So basically I had about 7 hours of travel when you count, like, I got to the airport a little early, I took the first hour flight, then I sat in Chicago for a little bit, then I took the second hour flight. Normally that sounds terrible, and it was a little less than pleasant on the way home. I'll talk about that later. But basically it was like 7 hours to myself, and I had so many podcasts that I had missed while we were in Ireland. So basically I took my headphones, I charged my phone, and I listened to podcasts and knit for like 7 hours straight, with a little bit of getting up and on the plane and getting off the plane, and maybe a little snacking in between. But that's basically what I did. So I finished the 2 fronts before I left, but I took them with me because I am ever the optimist that I will get more done than I think I will. And my thought was, oh, if I take it with me and I work on it nonstop, maybe I'll finish the back and then I can join the sleeves, and then all I would have is kind of the cuff treatments, and there's a hood, and then some ribbing all the way around. Or not ribbing, garter stitch border. Of course, that was way over ambitious, but I am pleased with what I did, because of course the back is twice the width of the fronts, and I am fairly far in on the back. I'm a little more than halfway on the back. I just started my second skein. The skeins are 250 yards, so they are a good length. I used most of a skein for each front, and so my plan was that I'd probably use 2 skeins for the back, and then I have at least some amount left over from the first 2 skeins, so I was going to use this for the sleeve detailing, and then as much as I needed for the ribbing, and I have one final remaining skein, which I figured would be for the hood. So I ordered yarn appropriately, and I'm not worried about running out at all, but the back, just, it's taking a lot longer than, I don't know why I was super ambitious, because basically I knit all the way there, I knit all the way home. I knit a little bit while we were there, but not a lot, because I got in to Cleveland around midnight on Friday, and then we had all day Saturday at the convention center, and so I didn't knit all day because we were in back-to-back meetings all day. We did drinks, we did dinner. I knit for maybe 20 minutes in bed before I went to sleep that night, because I got in at midnight the night before, so I didn't even get to the hotel till 1 a.m. And then we did that full day, so I was super tired. And then we did a half day of business. The market closed at 2 p.m. and then we went straight to the airport. And then I did get some sort of extra knitting time on my way home because the flights got delayed for thunderstorms. So you really had more like 8 or 9 hours on the way home, which was a little less than fun because by the time I crawled into bed last night, it was 1:30 in the morning again. That said, I got about half the back done, or maybe a little bit more than half the back done. So my plan is to really try and crank on this and get more of this done in the next few days. I committed to getting this project done by the 30th, and so I really need to do that. So I am just going to crank on it. I think after I finish the podcast this afternoon, I'm just going to call it a day. It's only about 3 o'clock right now, and I'm just going to sit and knit for the rest of the night. Because I am tired and I worked all weekend. So I think I'm just gonna take it the afternoon off, or what's left of the afternoon, and work on this. As soon as I finish this, I really feel like everything else will fly, because I join at the shoulders and I seam the sides, and then there's just maybe 10 or 12 rows of garter stitch on each side to finish off the sleeves. And then it's just the hood and the band that goes all the way. It's the front band on the sweater, and then it goes all the way up and around and over the hood. So, I mean, I still do have knitting, but I really think this should be doable, and I should be done with this by next week, or by the week. By the time we get through the weekend, I should be done. So I should have a finished project to show you on Monday, July 1st. I'm really enjoying working with this yarn. It is a surprise to me, because I find cotton really hard on my hands. And the fact that it is a 45-55 blend of cotton and acrylic means that there is a lot more give in it, and I don't feel like the cotton is constricting for my hands. So I actually could knit on this for 6 or 7 hours with only a few breaks, and my hands weren't sore, which was really, really lovely. I also find that while I have worked with their Perfection DK, or their Perfection Worsted, which is their wool acrylic blend, and while I'm knitting with it, it kind of feels, I mean, you can definitely feel that there's acrylic in there. I will say that it blooms really nicely after washing. I have enjoyed working with it in the past, and there are definite uses for wool and acrylic yarns. But I have to say that in this cotton yarn, it doesn't feel like acrylic to me. Like, it feels cottony, but it just feels like maybe it's a cotton wool, or, I mean, it's just super soft cotton, and that's all I feel. And so it's a really affordable choice. It's a really nice choice. It means that it's going to be super washable and wearable, and I also feel like maybe it will help it hold its shape a little bit. I mean, because acrylic doesn't really block, and cotton tends to stretch, so I feel like maybe it will kind of hold the shape that I knit it in. So I'm not really 100% sure. I will save my reservations until I finish blocking it and wear it a little bit. But I'm really actually enjoying working with this yarn. It's not super splitty, and I'm just really, I really like it. I am just moving right along. So this is Opportune by Emily Ringelmann. The yarn it calls for is Kramer Tatami Tweed. Let me go find it again. Kramer Tatami Tweed, DK, or Kramer Tatami, which is just the solid colors without the tweed flecks in it. And Kramer generously sent me this yarn for review, and I can't remember how much it is a skein, but I want to say it's not more than $6 or $7 a skein, and I'm going to knit the whole sweater. It's 250 yards a skein, and I'm going to knit the whole sweater in 5 skeins. Now, of course, it's not full sleeves, but it does have a hood. So it's a really reasonable summer fabric, and I think it would be great for like what I'm making, pool cover-ups, kid sweaters, all kinds of, maybe a summer shell that you can just throw in the washing machine and then go. So I can highly recommend it from what I've been doing so far, and I will talk about it more next week. But that is really the only project that I've been working on this week, because I was kind of coming in from Ireland and heading out on travel, and I needed to get this one done. So it's probably going to see the bulk of my attention this week, but I also have something new to cast on. So I was asked to knit a sample, and as far as I know, it's not a secret, so I'm going to talk about it. And the pattern that I'm going to knit, let's see if I have, gosh, they printed out the pattern and everything, and it's wonderful, and then I didn't even look at it to see if they put the pictures in it. I am knitting a summer shell. It's kind of lacy. Hang on just a second, because I can't, you know what, it doesn't look like they printed out the pictures. I am knitting a summer top. From what I remember, gosh, I can't even remember the name. That's terrible. Hang on, I'm gonna pull it. Hold on. It is, oh, here it is. It is the Riverton Tea. And it is by, it's incompletely, it looks like Sheila Ivory something. I am going to have to put it in the notes. I'm a bad podcaster. Okay, let's talk about this. It is a little tee, and as you can see, it's got a little bit of a lacy neckline and a bit of a intentional gathering up at the top for a little pleat. And it is just a sweet summer top, and I am knitting it in the extra large, the 40 to 42 bust. And the yarn that I am using, which is somewhat new to me, I don't think I've used this yarn before, is in Zula Luxury Fibers. It is in their Breeze Lace. They are a company out of Fresno, and the Breeze Lace is a 65% silk, 35% linen. The colorway is this great turquoise. It's called Alice, and the yardage is about 750 yards. So it is a lace weight in this great pool turquoise. It's going to be such a great summer top, and that is actually the yarn called for in the pattern. So they printed out the pattern and sent it to me along with 2 skeins of the yarn, and I was thinking, oh goodness, I'm going to have to cake up the lace skeins, but they arrive in cakes. Isn't that great? So I am going to probably try and start this a little bit tonight and finish up Opportune real quick, and then try and get through this. This should be a pretty quick knit. I don't anticipate it taking me more than 2 or 3 weeks because it is just a little lace tee, and I think it's just going to be lovely. So I'm looking forward to that. You'll see that. For July, knitting will be a little bit sparse because I will be doing lots and lots of spinning, but I have this tee that needs to be done. I have brown sheep cotton fleece in their fingering. It's called, I think it's Cotton Fleece Fine, and it's a fingering weight, and I'm going to do a little shell for myself. And actually it's in kind of a teal as opposed to turquoise. But so those will be my 2 knits for July. And then I have another sample knit that I can't talk about, so I'll be working on that. And I have a shawl that I committed to knit in August out of a new yarn from Manos del Uruguay. So I have lots of sample and test knits and review knits coming up. I don't know exactly when I'm going to get to knit for myself or the kids. I need to start pushing on that too. So that is kind of what's coming up. But my guess is you'll just see work on these 2 projects when I come back to you next week. So let's talk about TNNA. As I said, TNNA is not really a shopping show. That said, some people do bring stuff and do bring extra product to sell, and on Sunday usually everybody's really looking to get rid of product, because basically it's this conundrum where as a wholesaler you want to bring your product so you can show people, so they can touch it, so they can see the colors, so they can potentially take some samples of it home with them, and you want to keep your booth looking full enough and, you know, showing your full line so that you can show it to people who can place orders. But then a lot of people don't want to take all that yarn home, so instead everybody goes shopping. And so that's kind of fun, and I didn't really expect it, and it was lovely. So I'm going to talk about the things that I got. First of all, we stopped in the Stitch Sprouts booth, which is a lovely booth. They do have their own yarn, but they also have all kinds of accessories and patterns and fun things. They had all kinds of patches and stitch markers and all kinds of accessories, and then they had a really beautiful yarn line. But one of the things that they were selling at the show as a little fundraiser, and they were donating all the proceeds to an LGBTQ charity, and I confess I cannot remember which one. It was on a little card on the table, and it just basically said that the proceeds of the sales went to that. But they had this great t-shirt called or that says "Spun This Way," and I just really loved it, and I wanted to support their mission. And so actually my boss and I both picked up t-shirts, and again, that is from Stitch Sprouts. I don't know whether she will have them on her website, but they are lovely t-shirts, and I am looking forward to washing and wearing that. In fact, I need to drop that in the washing machine today. I thought about wearing it on the podcast today, but it's not washed yet, so I figured I would wash it first. Let's talk about yarn. So when I realized that I could buy yarn at this show, I started thinking about what I might want, because I have really been trying hard to purchase for projects. Rather than just purchase a single skein, because I have a million single skeins of fingering weight. I really could probably wait for at least several years without buying any more yarn and still not be under any hardship, because I have so much. And lately I have not even been able to knit most of what's in my stash because I have been so busy working on samples and review knits. So I gave some thought to what I wanted, and actually last week I had come to the conclusion that I need to knit myself a basic black cardigan. And I know that sounds really kind of boring to knit, and it was one of those things that I had kind of put off for a while because I was like, why would I knit myself a black sweater, you know, because I could just go out and buy a black sweater. But last week I pulled my beloved little black sweater out of the my commercially made little black sweater out of the washing machine and found another hole in it, and it is I think it's a merino silk. It's a like machine knit commercial sweater, but it's starting to like fray at the seams, and I can only kind of sew them up so many times because it's starting to actually fray and like come undone at the seams. And so like I keep losing little bits and I keep taking the seams in a little bit. And I'll be honest, when I bought the sweater, it was a little smaller. I probably should have gotten a medium, but it was a small. Anyway, I decided, you know what, this is stupid, I knit. And even though I may or may not enjoy knitting a fairly plain black garment, it is something that I'm going to get so much use out of. So originally I had decided maybe I would think about buying something when I went to Stitches Midwest, because I thought that was going to be my next shopping opportunity. So to make a long story short, what I did, and I apologize for all the crinkling, I really was terrible at getting everything that I needed out of the plastic. We stopped at Zula, which is really funny because I only just got Zula to work with for the first time, but I also bought Zula to work with for the second time. We stopped by Zula on Sunday morning, and Zula had bags and bags and bags and bags of yarn out in their display, and then inside each of the displays they had duffel bags that were also full of more yarn. Basically they were running a special at the show. I think if you ordered 12 bags of yarn on your wholesale order, you got a bag free, and so the free bag was the one that they were going to give you right there. Anyway, so my boss made a beeline for Zula because she was looking for a sweater quantity of yarn, and because they had bags of all the same color, she went there immediately, and I thought, you know, I'll just look and see if they have a black. And black is so hard because black is really hard to dye so that it doesn't come out looking charcoal, and also a lot of the semi-solid blacks are you can see a lot of white in them, and I didn't really want that in my sweater. And I actually was considering going to like a very commercial black so that okay. I have been spoiled by beautiful hand knitters. Usually when I create garments, I want them to look textured, and I don't want them to, when I say I have been spoiled, because I've been working with beautifully like kettle dyed yarns and hand dyed yarns for so long now, I love the kind of semi-solid, the like mottled texture that they create. And a lot of times when I look at commercial yarns, they look really flat to me because they're just one color and kind of one note, and there isn't a lot of nuance in the color. And so like the yarn that I don't use them so much anymore because of reasons, but the yarn that I really think about that with is Cascade. I used to use Cascade 220 and 220 Superwash a ton. And then I got into hand-dyed yarns, and when I went back to the Cascade colors, not so much the like the tweeds and the kind of blends of the heathers, but when you look back at the colors, they're just really flat. They're all one note, and there isn't a lot of texture. And so then for a while, I was like buying Cascade 220 and over dyeing it with Kool-Aid or food dyes to get that kind of kettle dyed variation that I wanted. In a black sweater that I want to go with slacks and all kinds of other things, because it is black, I really actually wanted it to be one note, and so I really wasn't sure whether I was going to go for kind of a hand-dyed yarn, because I was concerned that if it was mottled enough, it wouldn't look black enough to sort of match with a lot of the other things that I want it to match with, and that it would end up looking a little bit like a black that's been washed too many times. I don't know if that makes any sense or if I'm just rambling on here. Anyway, I went around the racks, and a lot of times the other thing that I see is that you don't get a true black. What you get is something that looks like a really dark charcoal gray. And I really, for whatever reason, I'm really set on a black. I really just want a plain black cardigan. So, and actually I found a pattern that I liked. I really like Joji Locatelli's new, I think it's, oh gosh, what is it? Hang on. It's her new, it's like Under the Moon, in the Moonlight. If I had a memory, it would be lovely. Because sometimes I really, really struggle with that. But let me pull the cardigan, because I know I favorited it and added it to my queue. Let's look at everything. The other fun thing about the show is that I got to see so many, lovely patterns. I mean, that was really excellent. I came home and added a whole bunch of patterns to my queue, and my boss was like, make a note of that pattern. I'm going to want to make that. Let me see. Why did I not? Ugh. Okay, hang on. I'm going to look for it. I know, I'm like the worst podcaster ever. I'm sorry that this has been so, okay, it is called the Night Out Cardigan. And it is a really simple, really classic looking cardigan. I believe it is a raglan. Yeah, it is a raglan, and it's got 2 simple lace panels in the front. And I believe hers is in midnight blue, but mine will be in black. And I haven't decided if I'm going to put buttons on it or not. I have a love-hate relationship with buttons. I like how it looks buttoned, but I hate sewing on buttons and picking the perfect buttons. So that is what I'm thinking about, and that's a long story to get to the fact that I walked around the Zula booth, and I looked at all their samples, and I looked at all their mini skeins and everything, and then I came upon Zula Dreamy, which is a fingering sock base, and it is a 75% superwash merino, 15% cashmere, 10% silk in the colorway black. And it is a black, and it is a pretty solid black. There is a little bit of variation, but not a lot. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger. So TNNA is an industry show, which means that a lot of the cash and carry prices are somewhere between wholesale and retail. So you do not pay full retail, which is kind of also a bonus for shopping. So I got 4 skeins of this lovely yarn, like I said, from Zula Luxury Fibers, and I am looking forward to working with it. I think it's going to be a gorgeous cardigan. I have no idea when I'm going to do it, but since I tossed the black cardigan because it was fraying and it had another hole, this is moving up on my list. I just talked to you about all the things that I'm going to knit in July and August, so this might be my September project. If nothing else, this might be my Nanny Swaymo project, because this is I mean, I have a million things that I want to knit, but this is something that I really need in my wardrobe, because I wore that little black sweater all the time, and I'm really going to miss it. So that is that one. I mostly cut myself off after that. I only allowed myself one other thing because I hadn't gone and planned to buy anything, because we just got back from Ireland and I'm going to be going to Stitches Midwest at the beginning of August. So I wasn't supposed to buy anything, but I bought that sweater quantity, and it was relatively, well, I mean, it was relatively inexpensive, because I think the regular price for those skeins is probably somewhere just over $30, and I got all of them for $70-ish. So that's going to be my little black sweater, which, like I said, is going to be boring. There's not going to be a lot to see. It's not going to be a lot for me to see when I knit. In fact, it's probably going to be hard, because I'm just getting to that point where working in dark colors at night is hard. So the one other place that I wanted to stop, and they had a booth chock full of yarn, and then they also had fiber. So I fell down because they had fiber. I had been hearing a lot and seeing a lot about Oink Pigments, and they are not new. She said this was their 6th or 7th TNNA, so they are definitely not new, but they have come to the forefront recently. I think probably some indie, not indie dyers, some pattern designers have been using their fibers, and so they came onto my radar, and so they were new to me, and I went to their booth, and they had a bunch of lovely colors, but the one that absolutely got to me was this one. This is Oink Pigments Silky Fluff. It is 75% superwash BFL, 25% silk, and it is this beautiful kind of corally pinky colorway, which is perfect for the year's colorway. And I picked it up and said, ooh, that's really pretty. I kind of like that. And I looked at it, and the colorway is called Ovary, O-V-A-R-Y, Action. And I thought, oh, that's funny, because that's like overreaction and overreaction, and ha ha ha, they have such fun color names. And I said to her, oh, that's amazing. I love this color. It's like right on trend for the year. And the name is so funny. And she said, that is one of our colorways that we have designed to give back. And 30% of the proceeds are donated to Planned Parenthood. Sold. Sorry, again, I know this is a bit political, but this is how I roll, this is who I am, and I hope you'll stick with me. What I will say is that this color is now available for pre-order, at least on yarn. I don't know if on fiber, and it's 30% of the proceeds through, I think it's 30% of the proceeds, it's through June 30th. So if this color tickles your fancy, go check it out. You have a week left. It is Oink Pigments, and they can be found at oinkpigments.com. I will put a link in the show notes, and you can pre-order your colorway, and some of the proceeds go to benefit Planned Parenthood. So those were my purchases: a t-shirt and a little bit of fiber, and a little more than a little yarn, and I hope to work with those soon. So it was an amazing weekend. I really had a good time. I will say, And I have mixed feelings about saying this because, you know, this is all part and parcel of our changing industry. A lot of what I heard while I was there was that there were far fewer exhibitors there this year, and I know TNNA recently raised their dues by quite a bit. I also saw far less yarn stores, far fewer designers, and the aisles at times were pretty empty. And so that was kind of an education for me about, I mean, a lot of the questions about where the industry is going. And I mean, these incorporate a lot of the issues that I've been talking about recently, but they also incorporate issues kind of on a larger scale, which is originally the yarn industry was a lot of big commercial dyers, and going to a trade show was the only way that you had to see and touch and feel the yarn and kind of become aware of new products other than like a print catalog. And then, you know, social media got better, photographs got better, there was a lot more real-time exchange of photo and video so that you can see a lot more easily these days. There's also the influx of all the indie dyers, and there were several at the show, but not all of them can afford, particularly at the new raised dues rate, not all of them can afford to exhibit. And then a lot of local yarn stores are searching for what kinds of things that they can stock for what customers are looking for. And a lot of what customers are looking for these days are, well, they still want the workhorse yarns that come from the big companies like Barocco, like Blue Sky, like Sirdar, Universal Yarns, Trendsetter, you know, some of those bigger companies. They also want a lot of the indie dyed and the locally dyed fibers. So it's an interesting conundrum because I feel like it's kind of a circular problem, which is as you have fewer exhibitors, you have fewer yarn stores who find it profitable, or not profitable, but who find it a good business investment to go to the show, because it's expensive to go to the show if you're a small yarn store owner. And then if you can't find what you need and place all of your orders and like really really not revamp or really like set up your fall collection and fall offerings, because I think traditionally you went to summer market to see what was going to be new for fall and winter, and you placed all your orders, and then everything came in the fall, and you had all these wonderful yarns, you know, to tempt people with in the zenith of the knitting season, you know, which is fall and holiday season. So it's an interesting conundrum to me how you sort of stop the cyclical nature of fewer exhibitors, fewer attendees, fewer exhibitors, fewer attendees, because of course it's not profitable for the exhibitors to go if there aren't enough attendees who are going to be placing orders at the show. So it's just kind of an interesting question in the knitting industry in general, and something that left me thinking, because what I heard a lot this weekend was just like that 2010 was like the peak of the show, and the aisles were full and mobbed and you couldn't get in to see anyone, and that definitely wasn't the case. That said, it was a great trip for me. I got to meet a ton of people. We did a lot of networking. We had a lot of wonderful meetings, and I hope that some nice things will come out of it. I did attend on behalf of Stitchcraft Marketing, and I went with the president of the company. So most of what will come out of it will actually be for my job, not for me personally. But it was an interesting show, and I am really, really glad that I went. So that is kind of my TNNA recap, and we are 31 minutes in. So let's finish up on the prizes. Friday, June 21st, was the end of the Spring Garment KAL, and that was something that I hosted along with Jocelyn and Diana of the Northern Knits podcast, and the challenge was to craft something for your spring wardrobe. It needed to be adult-sized. We did not have very many specifications on what it needed to be, though. It could be a skirt or a top, it could be a sweater, it could be a shawl. You could do kind of anything you wanted for your spring wardrobe. Working with cotton and linen was encouraged, but not required. And like I said, we cross-promoted it on both podcasts. and a brief chat with them, and we are going to award prizes out of people who posted in our own groups. So they have started an FO thread in their group, and I think they're still hoping people will post in there, so they have not announced their winners yet. But I had told everyone in my group I would give you until Sunday night to post photos, since we ended on Friday. That gave you a day to weave in your ends and or block if you so desired. And I am happy to announce that we had 21 finished projects in the group, and there are several more underway that didn't quite make the deadline, or they started additional garments and didn't quite finish them. But so I am pleased, I'm thrilled that so many people participated. We didn't have, well, we might have had, we probably had about 20 participants. There were some people who finished multiples and some people who only did one. And the 21st project was mine. So when I drew for prizes, I only drew from the first 20. So it was names 1 through 20. And then, I wrote down the names. You got multiple entries if you had multiple finished objects. And I drew some prize winners. It occurs to me that I talked last week all about how I would do the prizes, but I didn't show the prizes. So I'm going to show them real briefly, and then I will announce the winners. Winners have already been announced on Ravelry. You can contact me here or on Ravelry. And again, winners have the choice of, they can have the spinning fiber that I show, they can have me spin it for them, or they can pick something that is ready-made for my shop. The only thing that I do ask is if you ask me to spin your fiber, give me 1 to 2 weeks to spin and ship, because there are 2 of you, which means I need to spin 8 ounces of fiber, and that usually takes me about 2 weeks. And so obviously one will be done before the other, but right, I need about 2 weeks before I can ship out your packages. And I will also include a sweet treat and some tea, and I appreciate you participating. So let me just show you the 2, where did I lose one? I did, hang on. Okay, the 2 braids that I pulled are both Hello Yarn braids. They are both club braids. The first braid is from a recent club. It is February 2019, and it is Blue-Faced Lester, and it is called Migration, and all of her braids this year are themed on birds. This one is yellows and grays, and it's really beautiful. It's got a little bit of green in it too, and this will spin up really nice for spring or summer, or you can just have the fiber yourself. The only thing I did do it is I pulled it out and I braided it up so that I could take some photos, but other than that, it has been untouched, and it is living in its Hello Yarn bag along with the label. So if you want the fiber and you're a spinner or a felter, I will send it to you. Otherwise, you can let me know. The second is an older braid. It is from the Fiber Club from November 2016, and it is called Folklore, and it is organic Polworth, and it is kind of a muted rainbow. It's got pinks and a little bit of a ruddy kind of orangey brown and some yellow and green and a little bit of kind of a dark navy blue. So there is that one, and again, I can spin that up or you can have it, and I opened it to braid it so that I could take photos and show you easily, because otherwise it's just a big bump of fiber. But again, that one has been living in its bag, so it is waiting in pristine condition for you. So I went through today and pulled winners. And the first winner is Rachel, and she submitted a beautiful cotton shawl, and she said she hadn't thought to work in cotton before, but she was really pleased with the shawl. So Rachel, let me know which of those braids works for you, or if you'd like me to spin, or what you might prefer out of my shop. The second winner was Heather, who did a beautiful Tanya, and neither of them were originally members of my group, so I can only, I'm not sure how you found me, but I'm really glad that you joined in. I always love having new people. I didn't specifically pick winners out of new people. It was a random number generator. It just happened to fall on some new people, and I love seeing fresh faces in the group, and thank you to those of you who participated who have been with me for a while, because I always love seeing what you're creating, and I appreciate your support. So I think that does it for this episode. A little bit of weighty stuff at the beginning, a little bit of discussion about TNNA in the middle, and knitting, and a little bit of fun at the end. I am not specifically planning to spin something this week yet. I'm leaving my spinning calendar open for these two. I will speak to you again on July 1st, which is pretty close to when the Tour de Fleece kicks off. That kicks off on Saturday, July 6th. My goal is going to be to have these two braids spun up and taken care of by then, so that I can start on my Tour de Fleece. I still have not picked what I want. I should do that before I come back and talk to you again. But we'll see how the spinning goes this week, and how much I get done. So thank you for tuning in with me. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope you'll continue to stay with me. And I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until then, I'll say happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.